Welcome from Brazil and Lesotho and Canada, Mexico, Denmark, Greece, US, Chile, Ethiopia, Greece, wow, Croatia. It is wonderful to have you here, wonderful to see you here. And here is what we're going to do today. So I'm going to start by, maybe just for 15 or 20 minutes, sharing with you some ideas about happiness myths. And the reason why it's important to talk about these ideas is because very often these myths get in our way of fulfilling our potential for happiness. These myths that are unfortunately very common, extremely pervasive, get in our way of achieving happiness. So I'm going to talk about 3 myths, and then I'm going to call on Yuval Kutz, who's the president of the Happiness Studies Academy, and together we're just he's going to present some basic outline of the Certificate in Happiness Studies program, following which we're going to answer your questions. And the questions can be about the happiness myths, they can be about the certificate program, they can be about our master's program in happiness studies. They can be about any topic relating to the content in the field of happiness studies or the specific programs. But that's in 20 minutes. Let's start now with some conversation around happiness myths. The first myth that I'm going to talk about, I actually addressed in some length in the previous webinar, those who were here, but I'm going to mention it again very, very briefly. The first myth, it's actually the one that I personally connect to, because that is what came in the way of my finding happiness when I started off on this journey 30 years ago. Which is about the relationship between success and happiness. Most people believe, most people live their lives in accordance with, most people raise their children based on the idea that success leads to happiness. That if we want to become happier, what we need to do is achieve certain milestones, certain goals, certain objectives, get so much money, achieve these goals, get so much praise and accolades and approval. And these are the things that will lead to happiness. Well, it turns out that this belief is wrong, not a little wrong, but very wrong. Success does not lead to happiness. There's research, for example, on lottery winners. I mean, how many of us wish to win the lottery? Me included. Of course we want to. Why? Because we believe that that will actually make us happier. Now, I'm not talking about a person who doesn't have enough food on the table or is feeling the constant financial stress. Yeah, of course, winning the lottery will make them happier. But once our basic needs are met, and I mean basic, shelter, food, basic education, once these needs are met, additional money will not make that much of a difference. Being extremely successful, prosperous, a multi-millionaire, that's not the path to happiness. Nor is it becoming a superstar, because if that was the path to happiness, then Hollywood would be the happiest place on earth. We would find among the top athletes in the world the happiest people. We would find among the most successful business people the happiest individuals, and we don't. In many cases, in fact, it's the opposite. Why? Because those very successful people really believed that success would make them happy. And they achieved success by every standard that we know about. They achieved success, and yet they're not happy. And now they realize that they have been misled. They realize the myth, but they don't have an alternative. And they no longer have hope. Before, when they were not happy and they were unsuccessful, at least they were hopeful. When I become successful, then I'll be happy. They have become successful, they're still not happy, and they no longer have the hope, the illusion to sustain them. So the first myth around happiness that gets in the way of the way we lead our life, that harms many parents and their children, is that it's success that is the path to happiness. It's not. In fact, it's the opposite. If you increase levels of well-being, that is when you will become more successful. It's not that success leads to happiness, but rather that happiness leads to success. So that's myth number one. Again, I didn't elaborate on it too much, just very briefly. I did speak about it, and you can always go online and watch our previous webinar. The second myth, which I'm going to elaborate on a little bit more, is about the fact that people really believe, most people believe, that I can wake up in the morning and decide, choose to be happy, and then I'll actually become happier. In fact, the opposite is the case. People who wake up in the morning and have the goal of becoming happier, or say to themselves, happiness is important for me, I choose it, I want to become it, I'm pursuing it, they actually end up being less happy. Now we have a problem on many levels. First of all, we know that happiness is important. It feels good to feel good. We know that happiness, I've just said that, leads to more success. We want to be happy. We want our children to be happy. We want our loved ones to be happy. There are courses on happiness, people teaching it. And yet, if I wake up in the morning and say, I choose to be happy, I want to be happy, happiness is important for me, I'll actually become less happy. How do we deal with that problem, with that issue, with that paradox? And the answer is that we pursue happiness only indirectly. So let me give you an analogy. You walk out onto the street, it's midday, the sun is out. You look up at the sun directly. What happens? You hurt yourself. Your eyes are burning. You tear up. So looking at the sun directly, that hurts. However, what if you have a prism, a glass prism, and you put it on the ground, and then the sun hits through it, and then you look at the sun indirectly through the prism? Well, then what are you looking at? You're looking at the colors of the rainbow. You can savor it. You can enjoy it. You can derive benefit from it. So looking at it directly, that hurts. Looking at it indirectly, that contributes to our well-being, that we can enjoy, savor, appreciate. It's the same with happiness. Saying that I want to be happy. Happiness is important for me. It's valuable, and pursuing it directly, that will lead to less happiness. It will hurt us. However, if I pursue it indirectly, meaning I break it down into its elements, and then I pursue those elements, in other words, the metaphorical colors of the rainbow, that's when I can become happy. Now, the question is, what are these metaphorical colors of the rainbow? So when you take happiness as, as a package, and you break it down, just like you break white light into the different colors, what are those colors? What are those elements? In our courses, we teach about 5 such elements. Broadly speaking, these elements have sub-elements as well. But these 5 elements are captured by our SPIRE model of happiness. SPIRE, S-P-I-R-E, of happiness. The first letter, S, of the SPIRE stands for spiritual well-being. Spiritual well-being is about, it can be, of course, about religion. It is for many people, but more generally, it's about finding a sense of meaning and purpose in your life, doing something that's important, that matters to you. It's about being present, being mindful in the here and now. So that's spiritual well-being. So if I wake up in the morning and say, I want to be happy, I'll actually become less happy. But if I wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to meditate a few minutes today, or I'm going to pursue a career that is meaningful to me, that's important, that's indirectly pursuing happiness, and that's how I can increase it. That's looking at the sunlight indirectly. So that's spiritual well-being. Physical well-being. Physical well-being, that's about nutrition. It's about exercise. It's about sleep. It's about touch. So, for example, regular exercise, 30 minutes 3 times a week, has the same effect as our most powerful psychiatric medication. Eating healthfully doesn't just make us physically healthier, and I'm not talking about going to the extreme and all of us becoming vegans, but doing some basic things, eating certain foods and not eating others, can go a long way in increasing our levels of well-being. Getting a good night's sleep, all these things are indirect ways of pursuing happiness, because if I wake up in the morning and say, I want to be happy, or happiness is important for me, that's not going to help. Whereas if I start exercising 3 times a week, that will make me happier if I haven't been exercising before. Or if I change my diet slightly, we're talking about small changes here that can increase, significantly increase my levels of well-being indirectly. The third element, the I of SPIRE, so we have spiritual, physical, SP, I of SPIRE, intellectual well-being. That's about learning, that's about curiosity. That's about deeply delving into a text or a movie or nature. You know, people who ask questions, who are curious, who learn, who are lifelong learners, are not just happier. They're not just more successful, which they are. They're also healthier and actually live longer. So curiosity kills the cat. It does the opposite to human beings. So once again, if I engage in learning, in asking questions, whether it's, watching TED lectures or reading books or going for walks, immersing myself in nature or studying art and savoring art, these are all indirect ways of increasing happiness. Spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational. Number one predictor of happiness, quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. That doesn't mean that they're perfect or that we're perfect. It doesn't mean that we're always happy when we're around them. But overall, spending with people who are close to us, and they could be romantic partners, they could be colleagues at work, they could be best friends, they could be extended family. It actually doesn't matter. Spending time with them contributes to our happiness. Being kind, being generous doesn't just help others, it also helps ourselves. That's relational well-being. And finally, emotional well-being, the E of SPIRE. Emotional well-being is about cultivating pleasurable emotions, such as pleasure, such as joy, such as excitement, interest, love. These are all pleasurable emotions that cultivating them, of course, contributes to our overall happiness. Happiness is not just about pleasure, but pleasure certainly is part of happiness. Another element of emotional well-being leads me to the third myth around happiness that I wanted to talk about. And that is that a happy life is a life devoid of painful emotions. or that painful emotions and happiness can never meet. So to be happy, I need to be free of sadness, anxiety, anger, frustration, fear, and so on. That's not the case. In fact, there is a paradox at play here. And that is when I reject painful emotions, when I believe, again, a happiness myth, a belief, a false belief, when I believe that a happy life is a life devoid of painful emotions, that actually leads to much more pain in my life. You know, the Buddhists talked about it thousands of years ago. More recently, research came out showing the following, that suffering includes two levels. The first level is natural. We all experience suffering, pain at some point or another. It could be because of a loss of someone or something. It could be because it's just one of those days. It could be because of a disappointment, a disagreement, a disease. There are many reasons why we may feel down. This is natural, and everyone experiences this kind of down at some point or another. And then there is the second level of suffering. What is that second level of suffering? It comes when we reject the first. So if I say to myself something to the effect of, Tal, you shouldn't be sad. You're a happiness expert. What immediately happens is that my sadness skyrockets. If I say to myself, Tal, you shouldn't envy your friend. You're better than that. What immediately happens, my envy, my jealousy spikes, goes up. Why? Because as Carl Jung, the psychologist, said, what you resist persists. And paradoxically, it's when we embrace and accept painful emotions, that is when they do not overstay their welcome. That is when we're in a much better place to deal with them. That is when they leave just as they came. So these are some of the things that we talk about in our certificate program, of course, also in our master's MA program. And these myths are critical if we are to fulfill our potential for happiness. So first, we need to understand that it's not success that leads to happiness, but rather the other way around. Second, pursuing happiness directly actually potentially hurts us. We need to pursue it indirectly. By breaking it down into its elements. And third, we need to realize that happiness is not about not experiencing painful emotions. They're part and parcel of every life. And paradoxically, when we accept these painful emotions, that's when we open ourselves up for joy, love, and ultimately happiness. Okay, I'm happy to elaborate on any and all of these during your question sessions, but what I want to do now is share with you a video that was created by Yuval Kutz, who is the president of the Happiness Studies Academy. And here he is elaborating on the certificate in happiness studies. And again, both he and I will be here after the very short video to answer any and all your questions. Without further ado, here is Yuval Kutz.
Hi everyone. The Certificate in Happiness Studies is a year-long program. The program is offered in English, Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, Chinese, and Hebrew. It is composed of two parts, both about the same length. The first is called Introduction to Happiness Studies, and the second is called Facilitating Happiness. While the first part focuses on theory, although it has some practice in it, the second part relies more about applied techniques, although it has some theory in it. This is an interdisciplinary journey in which we will learn the relationship between not just positive psychology, but also literature, art, science, and other fields related to happiness. The entire program has a weekly structure with the following components. First of all students in the same cohort starts off at the same day. And every week you receive access to 4 15 minutes pre-recorded lectures. Altogether, 1 hour. All of the lectures are delivered by Dr. Ben-Shahar. You can watch these lectures at your convenience. It's online, and they will always be available for you to go back and watch again. Every week, students are invited to join a 1-hour live webinar with Tal, in which they can discuss happiness, the topics of the course, and their personal lives directly with Tal. Last but not least, all students get access to their personal life journal. The life journal is a weekly follow-up to the lessons with additional exercises, extra readings, videos, journaling, meditations, yoga, and much more. You get lifetime access to this life journal, which holds the most comprehensive bibliography of research and material about happiness out there today. Actually, you're getting lifetime access to us as well. As HSA alums, you will get your Certified Happiness Trainer certificate, invitations to our annual gatherings, support from HSA faculty and the entire community. It is extremely important for us to give you all the tools needed to pursue a career and work in this field. I would like to thank you for taking the time today and for the interest you're showing in this program.
Okay, I would like to invite Yuval to join me here.
Hi, Tal. How are you?
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for taking the time being here with us today. As you know, we'll talk a little bit about the Certificate in Happiness Studies. We'll talk about happiness, and we'll talk about other topics, whatever's on your mind. So if you have questions for us and for Tal, please raise your hand. You'll find that under reactions, the gesture under reactions on the bottom of your screen, and you can raise your hand or write your questions in the chat. We'll try to get it from there as well. Tal, you have a question in the chat, by the way, that has nothing to do with the certificate. Maybe we'll start with that because it's an interesting question that I'm curious about as well. Paul's asking, how can we be happy in such, and the world is going through turmoil, crisis, and climate crisis, and political, and how can we be happy? Talk about happiness, or is that relevant?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the question is very relevant to where we are today, because yeah, our world is going through turmoil. We're just coming out, not really coming out of the pandemic. There's financial uncertainty, there is climate change, there is war or wars going on, and we're talking about happiness. So there are a few answers to this that actually have to do with the myths that I spoke about, especially myth 2 and 3. The first one is that happiness does not mean being joyful and laughing and smiling all the time. Happiness is also about struggling and being sad when appropriate, and crying and experiencing the full range of human emotions. So we're not talking about happiness in the sense of, oh, I had ice cream, I'm so happy, or I was on the beach, I was so happy. These are fun activities, But when we talk about happiness, we're talking about something which is much deeper, that includes a sense of meaning and purpose, that includes taking care of mind and body, that includes learning, intellectual well-being, that includes kindness and generosity and relationships in general, and that includes gratitude, appreciation, joy, as well as sadness and fear and so on. So we're talking about something much, much broader. And the other thing, you know, when people say, you know, why are you even talking about happiness now when things are so bad around us? Because if we don't, we're not just hurting ourselves, we're hurting the world. You see, people who experience happiness or more happiness are more likely to be generous and kind, are more likely to go out of their way and help others, are more likely to fight injustice where they see it outside. So increasing levels of well-being actually makes us better people. We see the connection between happiness and goodness. So our world needs happiness so that it can improve. In other words, we need to look at happiness not just as a nice to have, but also as a moral necessity.
What do you mean by embrace negative emotions? Can you elaborate on that? How do we do that?
Yeah, so there are various ways in which we can embrace painful emotions. One way is by crying, shedding a tear. You know that there is research showing that when we cry, we actually release oxytocin. Oxytocin, that's the love hormone, you know, makes us feel all good and mushy inside. When we cry, we release opiates. These are naturally occurring drugs that calm us down. So crying, allowing the emotions to flow through us, contributes to our well-being. Talking about emotions, that's another way of embracing rather than rejecting. You know, think about this. You go to a therapist, you spend 15 minutes just talking. You know, they barely say anything. At the end, you pay a lot of money and you feel better after. Why? Because you express rather than suppress. Because you share your emotions rather than hold them in. And a third way of expressing rather than suppressing emotions is through writing. There's a lot of research coming out of the University of Texas, coming out of Missouri, coming out of Mexico, Japan, cross-cultural research showing just how powerful, how important it is to write down what we feel, what we're experiencing. And that helps us, or helps the emotions flow through us rather than us blocking them. So these are some ways, and some ways, again, that we practice and exercise and experiment with throughout our programs.
There are a few questions about the certificate, and then we'll take a hand that I see we have a hand up. At the weekly live webinars on a certain day, the weekend, is there a usual time for these live webinars? Yes, there is usual time. It is usually on Thursdays. It is on 2 different hours. One week it's in 1 hour, and then other week is another hour. We are trying to make it convenient for the entire globe. So what, 1 week it's convenient for half the globe, and the other week it's convenient for the other half. The reason we do that is we have thousands of students taking the certificate program from more than 85 countries. We actually rechecked this morning how many countries do we have, and we reached 85 countries. So we're very thrilled about that, and the community is growing, and it's lovely to see everyone here as well. So those are the live webinars. Since Tal lives in New Jersey, and usually he's delivering the webinars from EST time, then it is convenient. Both of the hours are usually convenient for EST time. One is in the morning and one is at noon. In Europe, usually it's one is at noon and one is in the evening. It's more complex when it comes to Australia, China, although at least every other week they will have a webinar that is convenient at for their time zone.
And they're recorded, so you can always watch the webinar at whenever it's convenient for you.
All of the webinars are recorded, and you can watch them later at your own time if you missed it, or even if you watched it and you want to rewatch them or watch them again. What kind of employer, maybe Talia will take that, what kind of employer would offer me a job saying that I've got the certificate plus prior degree in psychology?
Well, more and more employers are looking for people who are well-versed in the field of positive psychology or happiness studies. Now, they may hire you as a chief happiness officer, but this, and there are more and more companies hiring for that, or they may just hire for human resource, or, and this is where we're working very hard to educate the public. In every management position, there is real benefits to knowing about the science of well-being. Because what the research shows very clearly is that if you increase levels of well-being, even by a little bit, and we're talking 3–4%, you see a significant increase in productivity among your employees. Creativity, innovation goes up. Teamwork improves. Retention rates, people are talking about the great resignation today. Well, retention, people are more likely to stay at work if you increase levels of well-being. So what kind of employer would hire you if you have a certificate in happiness studies? An employer who knows the science, the research. And again, part of our role and your role is to educate more and more people. And in fact, more and more people do know about the value of happiness and well-being. And it becomes more and more of a competitive advantage, whether you're in business, whether you're in coaching, whether you're in therapy, whether you are in teaching, law, medicine, you name it. We have people from over 85 countries. We have people from just about every profession that you can imagine. And we have those who come in because they want to be happier and on a personal level benefits.
Now maybe we'll take the first hand up. I see Rosanna.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I have a question. In the program is one webinar live a week, right?
Correct.
And I just remember that it's a videos, pre-record videos. Is 1 hour. How long was these videos a week? Just to plan how long time I need to take it.
Good.
So
go for it, Ivan.
It's the program is delivered in a weekly structure. That means that every week you get about the same structure, different content, but the same structure of content. Every week you get 4 pre-recorded lectures of 15 minutes. So altogether 1 hour. These are pre-recorded lectures. Those lectures are delivered in English, although they have subtitles for Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, Chinese, and Hebrew. I forgot one language, no? Okay. And that is the pre-recorded lectures. Alongside the pre-recorded lectures, you will find extra readings, videos, exercises, journaling, yoga, meditations, and much more. Those are the exercises around the weekly content. Additionally, every week, Tal delivers a session that is live, like this one, via Zoom, for an hour and a half. This is happening in different hours on Thursdays every other week.
Okay, thank you. One last. And what is the price for the certification?
So, sorry, I missed the question.
The price, the cost.
The price, the cost of the, okay. The price of the certificate program is $3,900 US. We say that the program is for 1 year because you go through new content every week throughout the year. Although it's not so true because the program is a lifetime program. Once a student joins HSA and joins this program, he will keep getting invites to the weekly live webinars every week for life. He will keep getting access to the materials for life. All the materials that he learned and all the materials that he skipped, because the content that we give throughout the course for every week is divided into 3 depth categories. Actually, when you go through that year, you will probably go through the first depth level, which is called GEM, good enough mark. The first thing that you will learn one of the first things that you will learn during the course, that good enough is really good enough. Then you have GEM Plus, which digs deeper into that week's content, and you have GEM Plus Plus, which digs even deeper. Going through the GEM Plus and GEM Plus Plus throughout every week will really take you a lifetime. This is, I think, the most comprehensive bibliography about happiness out there today. So that is the content. This is the price. During this live webinar, we are offering the participants of this webinar a $500 discount. We just put it on the chat. If you use the code live webinar, all capital letters, on our website, you scroll down, there is 2 forms for payment. One is for one-time payment and one is for 10 equal payments. The $500 discount will work for both. You can choose either one payment or 10 payments. The next cohort starts a few days from now. This is February 1, next week. So basically that's it. I think I answered the price and the structure of the course.
Yeah,
and
just to add to that, so the minimum amount of time that it takes to complete the certificate is 1 year. However, there are people who take longer. So it's not that you have to go through it at this pace. Meaning, let's say you go on a vacation for 2 weeks and you miss 2 weeks, you can start where you left off, and you don't need to catch up. So you can be, 2 weeks behind. Even though I always remind the students, this is your program. You can't really be behind on that program. We just had a few people a couple of people graduating who started it 2 years ago. It took them longer to do it, and that's perfectly fine. Again, it's your program. So we provide a certain structure which is very flexible to fit your needs.
Thank you. And the other question that I have is, in this case, my wife and myself, we are here both. Can we see the videos together, or is some rule that it's just for one and things like that?
We won't tell anyone if you watch it together.
It's a great question. It's a great question. We have a structure specifically built for that. Since the platform, the learning management system that you will go into, is designed for a student and not plural and not students, then once you do the exercises, then it's already filled and it will be hard for both of you to do the exercise. We have a structure for that. If you write to info@happinessstudies.academy, we will let you know how to solve that. info@happinessstudies.academy. Actually, any of your questions that you did not ask during this meeting or came up late, or we didn't have the time to answer, so please write to info@happinessstudies.academy and we will answer all of your questions. And we have a structure for couples. We will let you know exactly. Tal, you want to take another hand?
Yes, of course. Kiraitu, am I pronouncing this correctly? Kiraitu Murungi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm from Kenya, and I've registered for the February course, which starts on February 1st.
Wonderful.
And I have two questions. One, will the certificate course enable me to set up a happiness center in Kenya? Two, I have already paid for my course through the 10-month installments. Am I eligible for the $500 discount that you've been talking about? Thank you.
Yuval, do you want to, you're muted. You're muted. Yuval, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Tal, I had problem with the line. Can you please repeat the question for me?
Yes. So the question was, Kiraitu is starting the course in a few days. Is this eligible for the $500 discount?
Yeah, the answer is absolutely yes. If you already enrolled and you want to take leverage of the $500, again, write to info@happinessstudies.academy and they will sort it out.
Right. And the first question, which I will take, is about a happier center. So one of the ideas, look, we are unashamedly about the happiness revolution. The happiness revolution is about spreading happiness in your country, in the world, significantly increasing levels of well-being. In order to do that, one of the tools that we talk about is creating happier centers. These happier centers can exist within an organization. We can have a happier center in the workplace. It can be in a school. It can be on Main Street. It can be a retreat center. But it is a place where you have an opportunity to introduce evidence-based scientific interventions that will help raise levels of well-being with all the benefits thereof. The benefits, some of which I mentioned: increase innovation, creativity, productivity, engagement, retention, physical health, relationships, teamwork, and so on. So introducing happier centers, you will get tools from us, and this is an initiative that came from students. We have an HSA Business and Alumni Club, where as soon as you join a HSA, you can join this club. And what their mission is, their reason for being, is to make these interventions more accessible to you. So if you want to create a happier center, you have a whole community behind you, supporting you. Needless to say, you have us in terms of the material and the content that we will share with you, that you can take and introduce into a happier center. So you'll have help coming at you from different directions to support you in your mission, because it is also our mission.
You know, Tal, mentioning the HSA Alumni and Business Club, we should talk a little bit maybe about the in-person get-togethers and retreat. And add on to what we were doing in the certificate, and it's not part of the certificate, it's not a mandatory part of the certificate, but we do meet with our students worldwide almost on a monthly basis. Wherever Tal travels, then he travels worldwide. Then we do a small get-together with our students, and twice a year we do a full 3 days retreat with all of our students and graduates, the ones that can attend. Actually, the last retreat was 3 months ago in Acumal, Mexico, and the next one will be in March in Lake Como in Italy. So any of our students, and are more than welcome to join also those events. This is not a mandatory part of the certificate, but definitely a nice add-on where we meet, we get together, we create a community, and connections that came from there are already a lot of businesses out there around in the field of happiness, positive psychology, and other related topics already forged and were created during those in-person events. How is the certificate linked to the MA? Just before the next hand, how is the certificate linked to the MA? Well, the certificate program is a derivative of the MA. The MA is 18-month long, 8 courses, 30 credits. 2 of the 8 courses are Introduction to Happiness Studies and Facilitating Happiness. Those are 2 courses out of the 8 that you will encounter during the MA. Those 2 courses taken together, aside from the MA, this is the certificate program, Introduction to Happiness Studies and Facilitating Happiness. There are a few differences. The first difference is that it's taken during the certificate, it's taken slower on a weekly structure and not through 1 semester for each, academic semester for each. The other difference is that during the certificate program, you are not required to submit papers for grading, while during the MA, those courses are graded as well as any of the other courses of the MA. So that if you've done the certificate and you want to move on to the MA, then by all means you can do that. You will need to submit the papers for grading that you haven't done so, if you haven't done so through the certificate. Everything that you pay for the certificate will be deducted from the price you pay for the MA. So you will not pay twice, of course, if someone is a certificate graduate or certificate student and wants to move on to the MA. Everything that you paid for the certificate will be deducted from the price you pay for the MA, so you won't pay twice for that. That is the linkage between the certificate program and the full master's degree. Both are fully online, the master's and the certificate program, while the MA is, of course, also fully accredited as a master's degree in the United States and worldwide. Tal, maybe you take another. The hand was gone. There was a hand.
Yeah, Nini, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you very much. And first of all, it's a privilege to be here live with you, Tal. Really, I've read a lot about you. Best greetings to all of you from Chile. I'm just finishing the master's here in Chile. There's a university that gives a master's degree in applied positive psychology, so it's great. So someone asked over there about the employers that would take people with this kind of certification, but I wanted to ask you, Tal, how do you see the business regarding people who want to do, I don't know, who want to teach or coach this by themselves? How do you see that, at least in America? Here in Chile, I think it's just starting. It's a second. That one was my question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good. Thank you for this question, Nini. You know, it's so often during our weekly webinars, a question is around something like, okay, I want to create a workshop for employees on well-being, or you know, I want to bring this to my school, and then I respond to it, and then that person reaches out also to the business club, to other people who have already done it, so they learn from their experience. And again, the lovely thing about this community is that it's so incredibly supportive. So Nini, if you raise this this question, you'll immediately get dozens of responses, and they'll reach out to you to help you in your endeavor. So what are you actually learning? The key here, and again, I'm emphasizing this, you're learning evidence-based, scientific interventions that you can take and apply in your work. This is, we're not teaching, self-help or new age stuff. We're teaching about interventions that have been tried and tested, whether it's in organizations, whether it's in families, whether it's in schools, whether it's in therapy, in coaching. And you'll be able to take just about every week, there'll be something that you'll be able to take and apply. Now, you won't be able to apply everything all at once, but what you'll have throughout the program, and certainly by the end of it, is a whole toolbox that you'll be able to, pick and choose from, and find the right fit in terms of interventions for whatever it is that you want to teach. So whether it's as a coach, one-on-one, or whether it's running a workshop for a group. Another thing that many of our students have found very helpful and useful is that you have a community where you can test material. So if you go into the forum and say, I want to give a workshop on innovation, let's say that's your thing, and who'd like to participate, you'll immediately have a few volunteers who will participate, who will give you feedback and feed forward, who will help you improve your program, and very often also help you find potential clients for your program. Again, it's the power of the group that comes through. So, the content, I certainly stand behind the content. I think it's, I think it's good because we drew on the best research in the field, but no less important than the content is the community.
There was a question about the different cohorts a year for the certificate. So the certificate opens 3 times a year. We are talking now about the February cohort that starts in a few days from now, but the certificate program opens again in June and in October. So you have 3 cohorts a year, February, June, and October. Another question was about the price of the MA. The MA cost is $17,700 US. If you're a certificate student or graduate, then this is $17,700 minus what you paid for the certificate. You will find all the information about the certificate and the MA on our website, www.happinessstudies.academy. There was a question I got in the privately about Spanish versus English. Actually, for Spanish speaking, and if you don't know English enough and you're worried about your English for the certificate, then all of the content, all of the exercises, all of the structure, all of the learning management system, all of the lectures, everything is translated into Spanish. Even the live webinars are simultaneously. One of the live webinars, one week when it's convenient for half the globe in Latin America, then we have a simultaneous translation to Spanish. The other week we have simultaneous translation to Chinese. So you have even the live webinars are simultaneously translated into Spanish. So actually, you don't really need to know even one word in English in order to enjoy fully the certificate program. Same for other languages that I mentioned, of course. Tal, how are you? It's been an hour. The hour is very fast.
Yep.
If you have any other questions, we're still here, or we can wrap this up. And thank you so much for your time here. I think we pretty much answered anything that we didn't cover about the certificate program.
Yeah, just one thing that I would like to elaborate on that you spoke about, Yuval. You were talking about how we have those live get-togethers, and our next get-together is in Italy, and just this month, earlier this month, I met 12 of our students in New Jersey, and before that in France and Spain. And, you know, once China opens up, you know, it will be there, and literally all over the world, we're meeting students. And the reason why we're doing it is because of a decision we made when we co-founded the Happiness Studies Academy, and we were debating whether it was about the certificate program or whether about the master's program. Should we have it an in-person certification? Should we have it online, or should we have a hybrid model? And eventually we decided to go with 100% online, simply so that it could be more accessible. You know, we would never have over 85 countries represented if we decided to have it hybrid, and certainly not if we decided to have it all in person. At the same time, we didn't want to forego the advantages and the benefits and the sheer pleasure of in-person interaction. So we created those retreats. And as you've all said, we have 2 big ones each year. And we also have many small ones. You know, the big ones would be 3 days long. The small ones would be a few hours in different places around the world, where we get to meet students. And no less important, the students get to meet one another. And as you've all pointed out, so many businesses and collaborations, and most importantly, friendships came out and come out of these face-to-face, in-person interactions.
You will find yourself part of a very vibrant community.
Yeah, so we hope you'll join us.
By the way, Tal, there were a few questions while you spoke. Now I will try to answer those very fast. Payments for the MA or discounts for the MA. Unfortunately, there are no discounts for the MA. There is a discount for the certificate for the participant of this webinar, which I mentioned before. This is $500 if you use the coupon code live webinar, all capital letters. And for the MA, you do pay payments. It's not exactly a payment system. It's more you pay per credit. So for each course, for each semester that you're taking, there are the courses in that semester and the credits for that semester. The whole MA is 30 credits. So if you're taking 4 credits, for example, then you pay for those 4 credits out of the 30 from the entire amount. So this is the payment is actually semester by semester, credit by credit that you are taking. There's a few private questions I got. If I haven't answered anything or I missed something, I'm sorry. Please send an email to info@happinessstudies.academy and we'll catch up there. There's a question I don't understand here. When is the program live in Mexico? The program is live in Mexico in a few days from now. The program is online, fully online, and we have a huge community from Mexico. Actually, I think it's one of our largest communities is from Mexico. We have United States, Mexico, Canada, Brazil, China, Japan. Those are the large communities. Mexico is by all means one of the largest. Anything that I missed here? A lot of thanks. So thank you back. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for the time you spent with us and for taking an interest in our work. And we truly hope that you will be able to join us in a few days from now and be part of this community. Well, we want to take the journey together.
Thank you all. Take care.